Hello everyone, this is Sinema77, horror and cult film lover. I'm back with another video. We're going to do a movie review tonight, and the movie that I want to talk about is, well, the movie I want to talk about is George Romero's 1972 movie, Season of the Witch. Now, George Romero may rest in peace, and if I get emotional, doing this video, please forgive me, but, yeah, I mean, I grew up with George Romero, and, I think everything he did was pretty much amazing. I mean, I know, like, to a lot of people, I mean, obviously, Dawn of the Dead, Night of the Living Dead, Day of the Dead, Creep Show, but, it's like, I mean, I think the other three zombie movies he did, like, Survival of the Dead, Land of the Dead, Diary of the Dead, I really enjoyed those three movies. Um, Bruiser, I think that was a very interesting movie. One of these days, I'll probably do a review on that one too. Um, what else was there? Martin easily is. I always kind of like. I think I even said this when I reviewed the movie Martin, and reviewed the movie Salem's Lot. It was always kind of, for me, it's always neck and neck between those two as to which one is my favorite, all time favorite vampire movie, because Martin is it's absolutely brilliant. If you have the chance, I mean, you get it on DVD or whatever. That's a movie that really, really, really needs a great Blu-ray release. George Romero's movie Martin. From my understanding, it's supposed to be, all tied up in something to do with the rights issues or something like that. But if any of Romero's movies, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm absolutely thrilled that this got a Blu-ray release. But if any of George Romero's movies ever really needed a great Blu-ray release, it needs to be Martin. But yeah, this movie came out in 1972. George Romero wrote and directed this one, and I find this movie extremely interesting. Now, the whole movie's about witchcraft, but well, not the whole movie, but a good portion of the movie is dealing with witchcraft, and you know, and like I said, really, and it really bothers me because Ramiro always said that if there was any of his movies he could ever go back and remake, this would be the one, because he felt that he really couldn't do what he wanted to do because of the budget constraints, and because just not having the time and the money that he needed to do it with. And it just kind of breaks my heart to sit here and think about that, what a great director and storyteller that he was. And unfortunately, so I think, if he had, you know, I admit, if like he was still alive, if I was like a producer, and I had money to spare, it's like I would actually take a look at this, and I would take a meeting with him, and say, hey, let's talk about, you always say, if you could have redone this movie, how would you do it? Let's maybe see what we could do here, and possibly even, like I said, if I was a producer, I had access to a lot of money, I would invest in his ideas, and let him go and remake this, and do it the way he wanted to do it. But you know what, though? I mean, we got this movie, and I'm glad we got this movie. And here we are now. Thanks to Arrow, it's on Blu-ray. So I'm just glad that this movie's available. That we get. I'm just happy that we got Romero's vision at all, even if it's not 100% what he set out to do. The story is about this woman named Joan. I mean, like I said, the movie came out in 1972, so this was at the time, where women were starting to getting into women's liberation, things like that, and um, women were really starting to, fight for their place in society. They didn't want to just be, they didn't want to be thought of as like the lower down citizens or anything like that. So they wanted to really assert themselves, and show their worth as human beings and things like that. And Romero decided he wanted to make a movie that kind of touched on that issue. And the story is about this woman named Joan Mitchell. She's married to a guy named Jack. Now, that was the thing, originally the movie was supposed, Romero's original title for the movie was Jack's Wife. And if you watch the bonus features and stuff on here, I'm not telling you anything you don't already know, but this is just more for people who are curious and don't know anything about this movie. But yeah, the story is about this woman Joan. She's married to a man named Jack, and originally, Romero was going to call the movie Jack's wife. And unfortunately, when the movie was first released, they called it Hungry Wives, and I'll get to that in a minute. But yeah, what ended up, the story starts off. She's having this very kind of strange dream where you see all this kind of surreal imagery where she's sitting inside of a car, and the man that we realize is her husband Jack. He's you know getting her out of the car, and he's like hitting her in the face with like a newspaper, and he's kind of leading her around almost like a dog, and just kind of mistreating her like he's walking. They're walking along this road, or they're walking in the woods, and it's like he's like moving the branches, and like he's just letting them fly back and hit her in the face, and her cheeks are getting scratched up, and she's seeing this baby that if you watch the bonus features, that it's never really established that much, but apparently they had a baby that that died, and that's what that represented. And she's basically put into a cage, and she's treated like a dog, and then she wakes up, and we realize that she her real life is really not much better than what her dream is. She's married to Jack. He's off on business a lot. He's abusive. He's kind of mean and overbearing, and they have a daughter named Nikki, and so, and Joan, she's basically trying to pretty much just trying to be kind of like a June Cleaver type. She's always trying to she's always trying to be the good wife, be the good mother, and it's hard for her because she wants to cut loose. She wants to become more. She wants to really find herself more. She wants to really break out more, and and she sees her daughter, and her daughter is, her daughter's in school, and she's hanging around with this guy. Oh, I forgot the character's name, but he's played by Ray Lane, who was actually an actor that Romero thought very highly of, and apparently a lot of the people that worked with Ray Lane on this movie and the other Romero movie, There's Always Vanilla, always thought he was going to break out to be bigger, and they thought he should have broken out to be bigger, but unfortunately it never happened for him. And in the end, he ended up just basically becoming a teacher, and teaching acting and things like that in Pittsburgh and things like that. But he had actually, lived in Hollywood for a while, and he tried auditioning for movies, and they had said that, yeah, he just had more of a, apparently he had kind of like a real like Steve McQueen quality to him, which I don't know. You think something like that would have got him acting roles, but apparently it worked more, against him than in his favor. And he ended up not getting, movie roles too much. And, oh, what's the name of the actress who plays Joan in the movie? Where is it? I promise I'm finding it. Jan White. I'm sorry. But yeah, Jan White, she was actually a woman who was in commercials, and she did some television and things like that, and they ended up getting her for the role of Joan. And yeah, she even had, if you listen to her interview on here, she tells some pretty interesting stories. Like she said, she actually did quite a bit of method acting in the movie. That she told the actor who played Jack, her husband, it's like when he was supposed to come up and hit her, she told him, come up and really hit me, slap me. And he's like, are you sure? And she's like, yeah, just come on up and hit me, slap me in the face. And he would do it. And she also tells interesting stories about while they were making the movie that, like weird things would happen. Like there's a scene, it's at the end of the movie where this character comes up to her, and she's all like, yeah, hi, and she's all like, I'm Jack's wife. I'm a witch. And, there's kind of two different versions of the story. George Romero said that, they filmed the scene, and at that moment when she says, I'm Jack's wife, I'm a witch, he said that, like right then and there, the ceiling right above them cracked. And he said, I don't believe in witchcraft and all that stuff. It's just, I think it was just, the lights, the heat of the lights ended up, making the ceiling hot, and it just chipped the, ceiling tile and stuff. Where her version of the story was that, they were filming this in the Forest home, and, at the time, this was before George had ever met Christine Romero, and before they ever got married. But they went and asked for permission to shoot in this home, and he said they her version of the story was that the house was always near, a it was always near an airport, and at one point she said, "I'll bugger off" or something to that effect, and she said that's what made the ceiling crack. And she also tells an interesting story, but there was a scene where she's doing this, where she's trying to do this kind of spell, this kind of witchcraft spell, and it says she has to write, the Lord's Prayer in reverse. And she said it was weird because they filmed the scene over and over and over again, and every time they get the film back from the lab, it always came out black. I mean, eventually they did get it, but it just seemed kind of weird that so many times, it's like they'd send that thing out and it'd come back and it was black. But anyway, getting back to the story, like I said, Joan, she's a woman. She wants to become more liberated. She wants to be kind of more up on the times, and Greg, I'm sorry, that's Ray Lane's character's name in the movie. And so she meets him, and he's kind of telling her, kind of like, her and this friend of hers, Shirley, they're hanging out and they're having drinks and stuff, and he's kind of telling them kind of like what's going on in the world today, and sorry, and this is how the kids act, and this is what the new things are, and all this other kind of stuff. And he, like he's tricking Shirley because he's, it's not really a joint, but he gets her to think that he's rolling a joint. She starts smoking it, and he's like getting her to say these things and act a certain way and everything else. Ultimately, the end result is just she's made to look like a fool, and so she's mad at Joan, and she's all like, how the hell can you have so many opinions for somebody who's never actually got off your ass and done anything? And for Joan, that kind of really, it kind of really hits home for her because, she's like, that's true. It's like, I don't really do much. And she goes back to her house, and at one point she's hearing her daughter having sex. And we realize that Joan is actually a sexually frustrated woman. And she goes into her bedroom, and it's not explicit or anything, but it is implied that she gets on the bed and masturbates. And then her daughter comes into the room and says, "Oh my God, Mom, you've been here the whole time." Thanks. That's really good. And so she leaves. And then Jackie ends up beating on Joan because, their daughter left. And so anyway, he's like, I'm going back on, I'm going back out on business and stuff. It's like, that kid better be here when I get back and all this. And so while he's gone, she decides she hears about this neighbor of hers that, you know, not dabbles, but she's, she's very much steeped in witchcraft. She very much believes in it. She practices it. She's very, strong and steadfast in her beliefs. And so Joan goes to see her, and she becomes intrigued by this. And she decides she wants to go ahead and she wants to start learning witchcraft. And so she goes and she starts picking up books, and she starts, um, going to stores that sell items, that they use for spells and incantations and stuff. And she's picking stuff up. And even, Donovan's song, Season of the Witch plays, which Romero said was never part of the movie. It's like Season of the Witch was never meant to be the title of the movie. And the song was never meant to be in the movie, but it just happened through circumstances later on that it happened. And, but anyway, so she starts trying to dabble in witchcraft, and ultimately what it turns out being is that this doesn't turn out into, it's not the craft. Okay. It's not the craft. It's not practical magic. You don't see her like levitating like fruit off of a table or any of that kind of stuff. Romero takes a much more realistic, um, much more intellectual approach with it. The whole idea behind her practicing witchcraft in this movie is more she wants to do it because she wants to cut loose. She wants to become more modern. She's sexually frustrated. She wants to break loose and have an affair. She wants to do all these things, and she feels that using witchcraft would be kind of an excuse that she would have for being able to do it. And so she starts trying to use these spells and everything. But like with like if you start dabbling in that stuff, and especially if you're not taking it particularly seriously, it's like you start to feel things messing with you. If you start dabbling in witchcraft, you start having bad dreams, which Joan does. She has bad dreams where she's being menaced by this character that is supposed to be kind of indicative, representing a demon. And that character, it's a guy, a tall, slender guy with a mask on, a demon mask on, and that character is actually Bill Heinzman, who is the first zombie you see in Night of the Living Dead, and he's always attacking her, coming after her, and things like that. And ultimately she invites Greg over to her house, and the two of them have sex, and he wakes up and he sees her performing this ritual and stuff like that, and he's the one who's like yelling at her. It's like she's talking about how the witchcraft is real, and they're having a shouting match, and he's all like, "No, lady, no. The thing is, you got bald, lady," and basically saying you got fucked. But ultimately, she decides she wants no more to do with him. She kind of, she had the affair with the guy. She got it out of her system, and then she told him to pretty much bug off, which, he does. He's like, "Well, your choice, lady. Whatever you want to do." And so it's like, she's not like going into insanity or any of that kind of stuff, but the dreams she's having are really starting to freak her out. And she does get, finally she gets word that they found her daughter, that her daughter was shacked up somewhere, that the police are going to be bringing her home. She'll be home like within a day or two and stuff. And so so she's kind of at the house alone. Well, it turns out, spoiler alert, but spoiler alert, turns out at the end of the movie, Jack, he comes home, and he's he's talking about, yeah, that kid of mine, she better be back, and all this other kind of stuff. He gets home earlier than he was supposed to. Well, meanwhile, Joan is having these dreams where she's being menaced by this demon guy. And so Jack goes up, and he's trying to get into the house. It's raining outside, and all of a sudden there's a shotgun blast through the door, and Jack is pretty much blasted to bits, and he's laying there on the ground dead. And we realize that Joan, she pretty much tells everybody that she freaked out. She didn't know he was going to be coming home early. She thought he was an intruder, and she shot him. She thought that she was self-defense, things like that. And like I said, at the end of the movie, everybody's kind of whispering. They see her there, and she's gone full on witch. I mean, she's dressed. She's really being the part of a witch and stuff. And this, everybody's talking about, oh my God, there's Joan Mitchell. That's Jack's wife. Jack died, and all this other kind of stuff. And this woman comes up to her, and that's when they have that scene, where she's like, I'm Jack's wife. I'm a witch, But this movie, honestly, I think it's, if you're interested in stories about witchcraft and the occult, I would definitely say give this movie a chance, because it really is. It's one of a kind. It's unique. Like I said, it's not The Craft. It's not practical magic or any of that kind of stuff. Like I said, you don't see her like, like, ooh, you don't see any of that. But it's different. It's, like I said, it's more of an intellectual take on it. It's about a woman who, she wants to experience things in life. She wants to do things in life, and she decides that she's gonna hide being, in the story, in the case of this story, I'm not attacking anybody who practices witchcraft or Wiccans or anything like that. I mean, they seriously believe in what they're doing, but it's kind of like in the case of this story here, the character of Joan, she kind of uses it more as a way to just kind of break free of this prison she sees herself in, this prison of being a wife, this prison of being a mother, and it, she uses it as a liberating experience for her, as a way to just kind of cut loose from everything that she's been feeling oppressed by. And Romero, I think, did a really interesting job with the movie. And like I said, it's really, really sad that he's gone. He talked about he would have liked to have remade this movie, and I really would have liked to see what he would have done with it. How he would have made it in today's society with a more modern take on it. And just it's sad. It's never going to happen. Somebody else could do it, but that's not Romero. That's not doing his thing. So, but yeah, I just would rather just Romero have done this. I don't care. Like they come up, oh, Alexandra Aja is going to remake it. It's like, it's not going to be the same. Okay, I'm nothing against Alexandra Aja, but yeah, but I just think that this is a really underappreciated movie. It's a movie of George Romero's that I'm glad that we have it. I'm glad that it's still out there for people who want to see it. You know, bless the folks at Arrow for, you know, really putting the work into it. I mean, the movie, it's an old movie. It wasn't preserved very well. So when you watch it on here, it's not going to look like a modern day movie. It looks old, you know, it's an old movie. It looks old. I mean, they could only do so much as far as the restoration process goes, but you know, it's watchable. It does look watchable. It looks cleaned up and everything, especially. I mean, you could definitely see some differences between this and the old Anchor Bay DVD, but you know, I'm just really glad that we have Romero's vision here. And the thing is, it was like, and Jan White said in her interview was that originally the cut of this movie was 4 hours long, and if that was the case, I really honestly would have loved to have seen the whole thing. You know, I've heard that, you know, like Romero has shot a lot of footage, and you know, some of his movies ran long. I heard that I'd heard, you know, rumblings back in the day that there was actually a cut of Dawn of the Dead that ran over 4 hours long. I heard that the original cut from Martin was, you know, 3 hours long. You know, and it's like, oh man, just, you know, that would have been great. You know, you kind of wish like those film elements would have been saved, and we could have gotten the real, you know, gotten those extended versions, you know, or at the very least, you know, put them on as like bonus features, you know. So here, you know, here's the movie. It's what you saw in theaters and stuff, but here's like, you know, here's like 2 hours of deleted scenes, or here's, you know, like, you know, an hour and a half of extended scenes, or, you know, outtakes, or, you know, footage, whatever. But anyway, though, yeah, I mean, I just, you know, I just felt really compelled. I really wanted to talk about this, and like I said, just Romero's, may he rest in peace, you know. And it's heartbreaking to me because he's not going to be around to make those movies that I love to see anymore. And but anyway, yeah, I mean, if you're interested in stories about, you know, it's not, you know, it may not be the best witchcraft movie you're ever going to see. It's definitely going to be an acquired taste, but I think, you know, if you're looking for something, a witchcraft movie that's interesting and at least a little bit different than what you've been seeing. Like I said, you know, if you're kind of looking for a witchcraft movie, but you know, not just something that feels like The Craft rehashed all over again, then yeah, I would definitely say check out Season of the Witch. This movie's really good, and you know, Romero, you know, a very intellectual take on it, very smart, very clever, and you know, that was kind of a neat idea that, you know, when he made this movie, it was made during the time of the 70s and women's lib, and you know, it's, you know, I think he had a very, you know, a very honestly interesting take on it, and it's a great film. So, and I hope this movie gets discovered even more. You know, I hope more and more people talk about it, and more people see it. But there's the back there. You can see a lot of bonus features. You know, that's good old Arrow for you. But yeah, so anyway, though, yeah, I got this in the. Hang on a second. Do this while knocking the camera over. Yeah, but I got this in the box at the Between Night and Dawn. You know, the three movies that he did. You know, fortunately, mine's seen some better days, huh? But yeah, the three movies that he did before, you know, between Night of the Living Dead and Dawn of the Dead. So, or four, yeah, it was four movies, because there was always Vanilla, then Season of the Witch, The Crazies, Martin. So anyway, though, so yeah, if you do get a chance, you know, check it out. It's actually a really good movie, and you know, like I said, if you're fans of stories about witchcraft and the occult, I think you'll find it quite interesting. I do. But anyway, that's going to pretty much do it. We're already hitting at 24 minutes here. And if anybody took the time to watch this video, I thank you for doing it, and I appreciate you for doing it. I honestly hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please like and subscribe. There'll be weekly videos posted and all other kinds of stuff coming up. So, yeah, so once again, this is Sinema77, horror cult film lover. Take care, have a good night, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.